Hello, and welcome to Bookspot. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we will continue our reading of Rewards and Fairies by Rudyard Kipling. Dan is working on a model boat and in the meantime listening to Hal of the Draft, telling about his achievements and adventures and setbacks back in the time of Henry VII. By the truth, I says to Master Furcap, as I might say to you here, I says, I'll tell you something, since you seem a knowledgeable man. Is the sovereign to lie in Thames River all her days, or will she take the high seas? Oh, he says quickly, the king keeps no cats that don't catch mice. She must sail the seas, Master Daw. She'll be hired to merchants for the trade. She'll be out in all shapes of weathers. Does that make any odds? Why then, says I, the first heavy sea she sticks her nose into will claw off half that scroll work, and the next will finish it. If she's meant for a pleasure ship, give me my draft again, and I'll port you a pretty light piece of scroll work, good and cheap. If she's meant for the open seas, pitch the draft into the fire. She can never carry the weight on her bows. He looks at me squintlings and plucks his underlip. Is this your honest, unswayed opinion? He says. Body o' me, ask about, I says. Any seaman'll tell you 'tis true. I'm advising you against my own profit, but why I do so is my own concern. Not altogether, he says. It's some of mine. You've saved me £30, Master Daw, and you've given me good arguments to use against a wilful woman that wants my fine new ship for her own toy. We'll not have any scroll work. His face shined with pure joy. Then see that £30 you've saved on it are honestly paid the king, I says, and keep clear of women folk. I gathered up my draft and crumpled it under my arm. If that's all you need of me, I'll be gone, I says, for I'm pressed. He turns him round and fumbles a corner. Too pressed to be made a knight, Sir Harry, he says, and comes at me smiling with 3/4 of a rusty sword. I pledge you my mark, I never guessed it was the king till that moment. I kneeled, and he tapped me on the shoulder. Rise up, Sir Harry Daw, he says, and in the same breath, I'm pressed too, and slips through the tapestries, leaving me like a struck calf. It come over me in a bitter wave like that here was I, a master craftsman, who'd worked no bounds, soul or body, to make the king's tomb and chapel a triumph and a glory for all time, and here, you see, I was made a knight, not for anything I'd slaved over or given my heart and guts to, but expressly because I'd saved him £30 and a tongue lashing from Catherine of Castile, she that had asked for the ship. That thought shriveled me with insides while I was folding away my draft. On the heels of it, maybe you'll see why, I began to grin to myself. I thought of the earnest simplicity of the man, the king, I should say, because I'd saved him the money. His smile as though he'd won half France. I thought of my own silly pride and foolish expectations that someday he'd honor me as a master craftsman. I thought of the broken-tipped sword he'd found behind the hangings, the dirt of the cold room, and his cold eye wrapped up in his own concerns, scarcely rested on me. Then I remembered the solemn chapel roof and the bronzes about the stately tomb he'd lie in, and do you see the unreason of it all, and the mad high humor of it all? Took hold on me, and I sat down in a dark stairhead in the passage and laughed till I could laugh no more. What else could I have done? I never heard his feet behind me. He always walked like a cat, but his arms slid round my neck, pulling me back where I sat till my head lay on his chest, and his left hand held the knife plumb over my heart. Benedetto. Even so, I laughed. The fit was beyond my holding, laughed while he ground his teeth in my ear. He was stark crazed for the time. Laugh, he said. Finish the laughter. I'll not cut you short. Tell me now, he wrenched at my head, why the king chose to honor you. You lick-spittled Englishman. I'm full of patience now. I have waited so long. Then he was off at score about his Jonah at Bury Refectory and what I'd said of it, and his pictures of the chapel which all men praised and none looked at twice, as if that was my fault, and a whole parcel of words and looks treasured up against me through years. Ease off your arm a little, I said. I cannot die by choking, for I am just dubbed knight, Benedetto. Tell me, and I'll confess ye, Sir Harry Daw, knight. There's a long night before you. Tell. So I told him, his chin on my crown, told him all, told it as well and with as many words as I have ever told a tale at supper with Torrigiano. I knew Benedetto would understand, for sad or mad, he was a craftsman. I believed it to be the last tale I'd ever tell, top of mortal earth, and I would not put out bad words before I left the lodge. All art's one art, as I said. I bore Benedetto no malice. My spirits, d'ye see, we were catched up in the high, solemn exaltation, and I saw all earth's vanities foreshortened and little, laid out below me like a town from a cathedral scaffolding. I told him what befell and what I thought of it. I gave him the king's very voice at, Master Daw, you've saved me £30, his peevish grunt while he looked for the sword, and how the badger-eyed figures of glory and victory leered at me from the Flemish hangings. Body o' me, 'twas a fine, noble tale, and as I thought, my last work on earth. That is how I was honored of the king, I said. They'll hang you for killing me, Benedetto, and since you've killed in the king's palace, they'll draw and quarter you, but you're too mad to care. Grant me, though, you never heard a better tale. He said nothing, but I felt him shake. My head on his chest shook, my right arm fell away. His left dropped the knife, and he leaned with both hands on my shoulder, shaking, shaking. I turned me round. No need to put my foot on his knife. The man was speechless with laughter. Honest craftsman's mirth. The first time I'd ever seen him laugh. You know the mirth that cuts off the very breath while you stamp and snatch at the short ribs? That was Benedetto's case. When he began to roar and bay and whoop in the passage, I hailed him out into the street, and there we leaned against the wall and had it all over again, waving our hands and wagging our heads, till the watch came to know if we were drunk. Benedetto says to him, solemn as an owl, You have saved me £30, Master Daw, and off he peeled. In some sort, we were mad drunk. I, because dear life had been given back to me, and he, because, as he said afterward, because the old crust of hatred round his heart was broke up and carried away by laughter. His very face had changed, too. Hal, he cries, I forgive thee. Forgive me, too, Hal. Oh, you English, you English. Did it gall thee, Hal, to see the rust on the dirty sword? Tell me again, Hal, how the king grunted with joy. Oh, tell us the master. So we reeled back to the chapel, arms round each other's necks, and when we could speak, he thought we'd been fighting, we told the master. Yes, we told Torrigiano, and he laughed till he rolled on the new cold pavement. Then he knocked our heads together. Ah, you English, he cried, you are more than pigs. You are English. Now you are well punished for your dirty fishes. Put the draught in the fire and never do so any more. You are a fool, Hal, and you are a fool, Benedetto, but I need your works to please this beautiful English king. And I meant to kill Hal, said Benedetto. Master, I meant to kill him because the English king had made him a knight. Ah, says the master, shaking his finger, Benedetto, if you had killed my Hal, I should have killed you, in the cloister. But you are a craftsman too, so I should have killed you like a craftsman, very, very slowly, in an hour, if I could spare the time. That was Torrigiano, our master. Mr. Springett sat quite still for some time after Hal had finished. Then he turned dark red. Then he rocked to and fro, then he coughed and wheezed till the tears ran down his face. Dan knew by this time he was laughing, but it surprised Hal at first. Excuse me, sir, said Mr. Springett, but I was thinking of some stables I built for a gentleman in 1874. They was stables in blue brick, very particular work. Dunno as they weren't the best job which I'd ever done. But the gentleman's lady, she'd come from London, new married, she was all for building what she called a haw-haw, what you and me'd call a dyke, right across his park. A middlin' big job, which I would have had the contract of, for she spoke to me in the library about it. But I told her there was a line of springs just where she wanted to dig her ditch, and she'd flood the park if she went on. Were there any springs at all? Asked Hal. Bound to be springs everywhere if you dig deep enough, ain't there? But what I said about the springs put her out of conceit of digging haw-haws, and she took and built a white tile dairy instead. But when I sent in my last bill for the stables, the gentleman, he paid it without even looking at it, and I hadn't forgotten nothing, I assure you. More than that, he slips 2 5-pound notes into my hand in the library, and Ralph, he says, he always calls me by name, Ralph, he says, you've saved me a heap of expense and trouble this autumn. I didn't say nothing, of course. I knowed he didn't want any haw-haws dug across his park no more than I did, but I never said nothing. No more he didn't say nothing about my blue brick stables, which was really the best and honestest piece of work that I'd done in quite a while. He give me £10 for saving him a hem of a deal of trouble at home. I reckon things are pretty much alike all times, all places. Hal and he laughed together. Dan couldn't quite understand what they thought so funny and went on with his work for some time without speaking. When he looked up, Mr. Springett, alone, was wiping his eyes with his green and yellow pocket handkerchief. "Bless me, Master Dan, I've been asleep," says he, "and I've dreamed a dream which has made me laugh as I ain't laughed in a long day. Can't remember what 'twas all about, but they do say when the old men take to laughing in their sleep, they're middlin' ripe for the next world. You been working on us, Master Dan?" "Rather," said Dan, unclamping the schooner from the vise, "and look how I've cut myself with the small gouge." "Yes, you'll want a lump of cobweb to that," said Mr. Springett. "Oh, I see you put it on already. That's right, Master Dan." King Henry and the Shipwrights. Harry our king in England from London town is gone, and come into Hamel on Hoke in the county of Southampton. For there lay the Mary of the Tower, his ship of war so strong, and he would discover certainly if his shipwrights did him wrong. He told not none of his setting forth, nor yet where he would go, but only my lord of Arundel, and meanly did he show in an old jerkin and patched hose that no man might him mark. With his frieze hood and cloak about, he looked like any clerk. He was at Hamel on the Hoke about an hour of the tide, and saw the Mary hailed into dock the winter to abide, with all her tackle and habiliments, which are the king his own. But then ran his false shipwrights, and stripped her to the bone. They heaved the mainmast overboard that was of a trusty tree, and they wrote down it was spent and lost by force of weather at sea. But they sawn it into planks and strakes as far as it might go, to make in beds for their own wives and little children also. There was a knave called Slingaway, he crope beneath the deck, crying, "Good fellows, come and see, the ship is nigh a wreck. For the storm that took our tall mainmast, it blew so fierce and fell, alack, it hath taken the kettles and pans, and this brass pot as well." With that he set the pot on his head and hied him up the hatch, while all the springwrights ran below to find what they might snatch, all except Bob Brigandine, and he was a yeoman good. He caught Slingaway round the waist and threw him onto the mud. "I have taken plank and rope and nail without the king his leave, after the custom of Portsmouth, but I will not suffer a thief. Nay, never lift up thy hand at me, there's no clean hands in the trade. Steal in measure, quoth Brigandine, there's measure in all things made." "Gramercy, yeoman," said our king, "thy counsel liketh me." And he pulled a whistle out of his neck and whistled whistles 3. Then came my lord Arundel pricking across the down, and behind him the mayor and burgesses of merry Southampton town. They drew the naughty shipwrights up with the kettles in their hands, and bound them round the forecastle to wait the king's commands. "But since ye have made your beds," said the king, "ye needs must lie thereon. For the sake of your wives and little ones, fellows, get you gone." When they had beaten Slingaway out of his own lips, the king appointed Brigandine to be clerk of all his ships. "Nay, never lift up thy hands to me, there's no clean hands in the trade. But steal in measure," said Harry our king, "there's measure in all things made." Godspeed the Mary of the Tower, the sovereign and grace due, the sweepstakes and the merry fortune, and the Henry of Bristol too. All tall ships that sail on the sea or in our harbors stand, that they may keep measure with Harry, our king, and peace in England. The Way Through the Woods. They shut the road through the woods 70 years ago. Weather and rain have undone it again, and now you would never know there was once a road through the woods before they planted the trees. It is underneath the coppice and heath and the thin anemones. Only the keeper sees that where the ringdove broods and the badgers roll at ease, there was once a road through the woods. Yet if you enter the woods of a summer evening late, where the night air cools on the trout-ringed pools, where the otter whistles his mate, they fear not men in the woods because they see so few, you will hear the beat of a horse's feet and the swish of a skirt in the dew, steadily cantering through the misty solitudes as though they perfectly knew the old lost road through the woods. But there is no road through the woods. Mark Lake Witches. When Dan took up boat building, Una coaxed Mrs. Vincey, the farmer's wife at Little Lindens, to teach her to milk. Mrs. Vincey milks in the pasture in summer, which is different from milking in the shed because the cows are not tied up, and until they know you, they will not stand still. After 3 weeks, Una could milk Red Cow or Kitty Shorthorn quite dry without her wrists aching, and then she allowed Dan to look. But milking did not amuse him, and it was pleasanter for Una to be alone in the quiet pastures with quiet-spoken Mrs. Vincey. So, evening after evening, she slipped across to Little Lindens, took her stool from the fern clump beside the fallen oak, and went to work, her pail between her knees and her head pressed hard into the cow's flank. As often as not, Mrs. Vincey would be milking Cross Pansy at the other end of the pasture, and would not come near till it was time to strain and pour off. Once, in the middle of a milking, Kitty Shorthorn boxed Una's ear with her tail. "You old pig," said Una, nearly crying, for a cow's tail can hurt. "Why didn't you tie it down, child?" said a voice behind her. "I meant to, but the flies are so bad I let her off, and this is what she's done." Una looked round, expecting Puck, but saw a curly-haired girl, not much taller than herself, but older, dressed in a curious, high-waisted, lavender-colored riding habit, with a high, hutched collar and a deep cape and belt fastened with a steel clasp. She wore a yellow velvet cap and tan gauntlets, and carried a real hunting crop. Her cheeks were pale except for 2 pretty pink patches in the middle, and she talked with little gasps at the end of her sentences as though she'd been running. "You don't milk so badly, child," she said, and when she smiled, her teeth showed small and even and pearly. "Can you milk?" Una asked, and then flushed, for she heard Puck's chuckle. He stepped out of the fern and sat down holding Kitty Shorthorn's tail. "There isn't much," he said, "that Miss Philadelphia doesn't know about milk, or, for that matter, butter and eggs. She's a great housewife." "Oh," said Una, "I'm sorry. I can't shake hands. Mine are all milky, but Mrs. Vincey is going to teach me butter making this summer." "Ah, I'm going to London this summer," said the girl, "to my aunt in Bloomsbury." She coughed as she began to hum, "Oh, what a town, what a wonderful metropolis." "You've got a cold," said Una. "No, only my stupid cough. But it's vastly better than it was last winter. It will disappear in London air. Everyone says so. Do you like doctors, child?" "I don't know any," Una replied, "but I'm sure I shouldn't." "Think yourself lucky, child. I beg your pardon," the girl laughed, for Una frowned. "I'm not a child, and my name's Una." "Mine's Philadelphia, but everyone except Renee calls me Phil. I'm Squire Bucksteed's daughter, over at Mark Lake yonder." She jerked her little round chin toward the south behind Dallington. "Surely you know Mark Lake." "We went a picnic to Mark Lake Green once," said Una. "It's awfully pretty. I like all those funny little roads that don't lead anywhere." "They lead over our land," said Philadelphia stiffly, "and the coach road is only 4 miles away. One can go anywhere from the Green. I went to the Assize Ball at Lewes last year." She spun round and took a few dancing steps, but stopped with her hand to her side. It gives me a stitch, she explained. No odds, 'twill go away in London air. That's the latest French stepchild. Renee taught me. Do you hate the French, Una? Well, I hate French, of course, but I don't mind Mademoiselle. She's rather decent. Is Renee your French governess? Philadelphia laughed till she caught her breath again. Oh, no. Renee's a French prisoner, on parole. That means he's promised not to escape till he's been properly exchanged for an Englishman. He's only a doctor, so I hope they won't think him worth exchanging. My uncle captured him last year in the Ferdinand Privateer off Belle Isle, and he cured my uncle of a raging toothache. Of course, after that, we couldn't let him lie among the common French prisoners at Rye, so he stays with us. He's a very old family, a Breton, which is nearly next door to being a true Briton, my father says, and he wears his hair clubbed, not powdered. Much more becoming, don't you think? I don't know what Una began, but Puck, the other side of the pail, winked, and she went on with her milking. He's going to be a great French physician when the war is over. He makes me bobbins for my lace pillow now. He's very clever with his hands, but he'd doctor our people on the green if they would let him. Only our doctor, Dr. Brake, says he's an worse than an impostor. But my nurse says, Nurse, you're ever so old. What have you got a nurse for? Una finished milking and turned round on her stool as Kitty Shorthorn grazed off. Because I can't get rid of her. Old Sissy nursed my mother, and she says she'll nurse me till she dies. The idea. She never lets me alone. She thinks I'm delicate. She has grown infirm in her understanding, you know. Mad, quite mad. Poor Sissy. Really mad? Said Una, or just silly? Crazy, I should say, from the things she does. Her devotion to me is terribly embarrassing. You know I have all the keys of the hall except the brewery and the tenant's kitchen. I give out all the stores and the linen and plate. How jolly. I love storerooms and giving out things. It's a great responsibility you'll find when you come to my age. Last year, Dad said I was fatiguing myself with my duties, and he actually wanted me to give up the keys to old Amore, our housekeeper. I wouldn't. I hate her. I said, no, sir, I am mistress of Mark Lake Hall just as long as I live, because I'm never going to be married, and I shall give out stores and linen till I die. And what did your father say? Oh, I threatened to pin a dishclout on his coat tail. He ran away. Everyone's afraid of Dad except me. Philadelphia stamped her foot. The idea. If I can't make my own father happy in his own house, I'd like to meet the woman that can, and I'd have the living hide off her. She cut with her long-thonged whip. It cracked like a pistol shot across the still pasture. Kitty Shorthorn threw up her head and trotted away. I beg your pardon, Philadelphia said, but it makes me furious. Don't you hate those ridiculous old quizzes with their feathers and fronts who come to dinner and call you child in your own chair at your own table? I don't always come to dinner, said Una, but I hate being called child. Please tell me about storerooms and giving out things. It's a great responsibility, particularly without that old cat Amore looking at the lists over your shoulder, and such a shocking thing happened last summer. Poor crazy Sissy, my nurse that I was telling you of, she took 3 solid silver tablespoons. Took? But isn't that stealing? Una cried. Shh, said Philadelphia, looking round at Puck. All I say is she took them without my leave. I made it right afterwards. So, as Dad says, he's a magistrate, it wasn't a legal offense. It was only compounding a felony. It sounds awful, said Una. It was. My dear, I was furious. I had had the keys for 10 months, and I'd never lost anything before. I said nothing at first, because a big house offers so many chances of things being mislaid, and coming to hand later, fetching up in the lee scuppers, my uncle calls it. But next week I spoke to old Sissy about it when she was doing my hair at night, and she said I wasn't to worry my heart for trifles. Isn't that like them? Una burst out. They see you're worried over something that really matters, and they say don't worry, as if that did any good. I quite agree with you, my dear, quite agree with you. I told Sissy the spoons were solid silver and worth 40 shillings, so if the thief were found, he'd be tried for his life. Hanged, do you mean? Una said. They ought to be, but Dad says no jury will hang a man nowadays for a 40-shilling theft. They'd transport him into penal servitude at the uttermost ends of the earth beyond the seas for the term of their natural life. I told Sissy that, and I saw her tremble in my mirror. Then she cried and caught hold of my knees, and I couldn't for the life of me understand what it was all about. She cried so. Can you guess, my dear, what that poor crazy thing had done? It was midnight before I pieced it together. She had given the spoons to Jerry Gam, the witch master on the green, so he might put a charm on me. Me! Put a charm on you? Why? That's what I asked. And then I saw how poor Mad Sissy was. You know this stupid little cough of mine? It will disappear as soon as I go to London. She was troubled about that, and about my being so thin, and told me Jerry had promised her if she would bring him 3 silver spoons, he'd charm my cough away and make me plump. Flesh up, she said. I couldn't help laughing, but it was a terrible night. I had to put Sissy into my own bed and stroke her hand until she cried herself to sleep. What else could I have done? When she woke and I coughed, I suppose I can cough in my own room if I please, she said that she'd killed me and asked me to have her hanged at Lewes sooner than send her to the uttermost ends of the earth away from me. How awful! What did you do, Phil? Do? I rode off at 5 in the morning to talk to Master Jerry with a new lash on my whip. Oh, I was furious. Witch master or no witch master, I meant to... what's a witch master? A master of witches, of course. And we'll find out how Philadelphia copes with a witch master and how he withstands it next time.